Hi, everybody. Mike Schopp, Adam Krautwurst. Welcome to draft season. Like it ever wasn't draft season. But, I mean, this is the end of July. Training camps, everybody's in. There's news that you don't even actually have to get out a decoder ring to try to translate necessarily. Guys who are not ready to play at training camp and guys who are. We're going to talk about that. Most notably, the Julio Jones news today, signing with Tampa Bay. Adam is coming up in 2 main event drafts, 2 slow drafts. That is definitely the deep end. If it's 2 at once, there's no question about that. And we'll go over some Superflex Bowl results of late, Adam's work in the FFWC. And I've got who I think is the key man in the first round of these drafts. So Adam's super cool. You know, he's Mr. Draft Sharks, and he's got his comeback player of the year. Last year was Cooper Kupp, and he's got a mink coat to show for it and everything like that. We've got this year's comeback player of the year too, but there's one player in round 1 in these big drafts who I think you really need to figure out what you expect from him. And that's from watching different boards play out here as more and more are happening. Anyway, this is just the beginning. Thanks for joining us tonight. Mike Schopp, Adam Krautwurst. Welcome to the Deep End, powered by Draft Sharks. Those were the Draft Sharks themselves right there, making an early appearance.
Yes, they were.
Adam, you ready?
I am so ready. I'm so excited. News, actionable news. As soon as I saw Julio signed, I immediately thought of you. I'm like, Mike's going to be so excited to talk about this and to brag a little bit. I'm ready. Main events are underway. Love it.
Here's why he says that. On a recent episode, I just haphazardly said, if you knew Julio Jones was going to play all 17 games for Green Bay, what wide receiver is he? I'm like, wide receiver 7. That's the number that came to mind. I got laughed at. And of course, we don't know that. It doesn't matter anyway. Not knowing that, and his signing with Tampa, I guess, Adam, it could be worse, but most situations that would be worse were never going to be realistic. Even though we didn't talk a lot about Tampa, and I certainly didn't hear much about Tampa, a guy like Julio Jones is only going to a good team.
Right. Absolutely. Like it was never going to be a fantasy, explosion opportunity for him because he's not yet at this age. He wants to win a ring. He wants to play probably in nice weather. He wants to play with a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, it all makes sense, right? To go to Tampa Bay, and it's good for him on a level, not on a fantasy level, but good for his career. But it hurts, and it's great for Tom Brady for his fantasy outlook and for Tom Brady's career. But other than that, I feel like it pretty much hurts everybody else there. But it kills Russell Gage. Godwin. It's funny. It's interesting that the news comes out kind of hand in hand with Godwin not being on the PUP and being cleared to go to training camp. So it'll be interesting. I mean, in 2 weeks from now, maybe even a week from now, we'll see all these guys on the field together running. There's no way Godwin will be full strength, but I mean, that'll be interesting to see what that looks like. I just took Mike Evans recently in the second round of a main event draft. So that I'm not super thrilled about that, but Julio's got to stay healthy. I mean, he hasn't been healthy in a long time. But as far as to affect Mike Evans' workload, but I don't know. We'll see. What are your initial thoughts?
My thoughts are the last point is the most important one, and it's why he wasn't on a team all summer. His body failed him last year, and you can say what you want about the fit in Tennessee, but they wanted him, and that was ultimately a 1 seed in the conference, and he couldn't stay out there. So that is the number one point on Julio Jones, and that's why, Adam, I'm not going to go along with it. It kills Gage. And in terms of Godwin, I also don't want to assume too much either, because it's still an injury that should take him into the season before he's at least full strength, if even ready at all. So there's still a lot to know about what happens in Tampa. And I think, too, these days, with the way teams use the preseason, we might not learn that much. Like if you were the Buccaneers and you make this move, are you suiting Julio Jones up for any of those 3 preseason games? I don't know. Like maybe not. And I'm not doing that with Brady or Evans or, maybe Fournette, like their main guys. The team could feel differently about that. So I think Godwin has always been a good investment in drafts for where you get him. And if you're playing in a tournament, you're going to get him eventually. And as long as you can support him, fine, great. Like Hopkins a little bit for Arizona. And I think Evans is fine. Evans is still in a great spot, although he's a little bit in decline, right? And so that was always the other side of the coin with him. But Gage, Adam, Gage was handpicked by Brady to come to the Buccaneers and, fall into that Antonio Brown role, I guess. Then we already had the Godwin information, but then no Gronkowski either. I think there's room for him. I don't consider it death that Julio Jones happened today in Tampa. He's still going to have to stay on the field, a concern you really don't have with guys like Gage. So long way to go.
Yeah. Long way to go. I always wonder too, teams never seem to do this. Maybe coaches are getting smart. I don't know. I feel like with a guy like Julio Jones, you can just keep that guy on ice and put him in. Like when you've got Mike Evans, Gage, Godwin, Lenny, like, do you need Julio in between the 20s? Like, can you just bring him in inside the 20 or 30 yard line and let him and Evans terrorize defenses? Like, do you need to play him every snap on the out? I don't think you do. And maybe, again, I don't know. That would be better for Evans, but still not great because, again, if he's coming in inside the 20 or 30, that's where Evans, kills teams. I mean, how many 1-yard touchdowns does Evans have over his career? So I'm hoping that maybe it pushes Evans down back into the third round, and then maybe you pounce on him there. And then if Julio ends up getting hurt again, then you end up getting around value there.
Do you need Julio Jones between the 20s, or do you need Julio Jones before Thanksgiving? Like this way, you keep him off other rosters. Who knows about his body? We haven't heard anything all the time. He's probably having to pass a physical to sign this deal. But I think the future has teams sitting out players, maybe even for long stretches, depending on their record or what their division status is. If Tampa Bay starts hot and the rest of the division is as bad as it might be, why bother? Even take Evans out. Load management. You see it in other sports, not yet in football, but there's really no reason in my mind to think that it won't come in football. That'll just be more of a nightmare in fantasy. But there is resolution on Julio Jones. I wanted the Packers. The difference for me is if he went to and maybe this is obvious, but if he went to the Packers, he's their number one receiver. Watkins isn't ready to play again, and Watson isn't ready to play, and you still don't know really much after that. You would expect them at least to sort of want to lean on him. And I don't know, maybe the fact that he didn't go there tells you something about where he's at. Maybe that's reading too much into it. But it definitely was exciting today to find out about this. It's probably good for Brady, Adam. It's just one more very respectable outlet for him.
So great for Brady. And maybe, it's all speculation, but maybe Julio's obviously not going to line up at tight end, but maybe he runs those same routes, those same seam routes Gronk was running before, and runs the same type of stuff that Gronk was doing. So we'll see. But I know we joked about your ranking of him before, if he goes to Green Bay and all that. Where do you have, because the Draft Sharks War Room, not the actual War Room, the tool on the website, but the group chat that I'm in for this main event that we're doing, me, Matt, Schauf, Kevin, and Jared Smola. The news came out right before our pick. And so it was hot and heavy over what to do about Julio, where to rank him. Everyone can go to draftsharks.com and check out where Jared ended up putting him in there for stats and where his projections are. But is he in the Tim Patrick, Brandon Ayuk range? Is he more up in the Robert Woods, Kadarius Toney range? I don't have a good feel for that yet. I think I want to see, Chad Schrader always says this. I think I want to see how all the other smart people, where they're drafting him, and kind of go from there. But if we end up reviewing this draft tonight, I'll show you where he ended up going.
Yeah, I'm ready for that. I'm not interested in drafting him at all in a redraft situation. Where are you at in your draft? Like the middle rounds, 9 or 10?
We're in 13.
Oh, 13? Oh, maybe it's not so bad. You really can't. What can you expect? What can you count on? when you get later in the main event or in the FPC, I don't know. This doesn't have to be how you would do it, and I would defer to you for the most part. But I'm sort of one factor I'm thinking of when I make these picks is it somebody I'll be comfortable cutting in a month or less. If there's going to be waiver wire guys you want, and there's going to be injuries, and you're going to have spots where you don't really have anybody to give up. You got to pick somebody like if Julio Jones starts okay, still you have to wonder about whether he can hack it. So I might rather not pick him at all, let somebody else cut him, and then see if everybody's forgotten about him by Halloween.
Yeah. Do you want me to pull up the draft?
Sure.
Go right there.
I really don't like looking at draft boards. I don't all the colors.
That's not really my thing. Not really my thing.
Not my thing.
So I'll show. I feel
all right. Go ahead. All right.
I feel all right showing this because we're doing a live draft recap on DraftSharks.com right now with this draft. I'm going to hide the names up top, but
you took him.
We took him into 13-1. Hot news. I said, if anything, we have to do it just so we can talk about it. Okay, at the very least. But we got him as wide receiver 61, Mike. I mean, at that point, let's see what we got. Like you said, we can cut. He's cuttable in the 13th round. Was it the main event champs or the football guys that caught every player from round 12 to 20, except for the kicker this last season? So it's like, take a shot on him. Hey, maybe Godwin isn't ready. Maybe Russell Gage goes down. There's other things that are possibilities. Jared and I were on it. Kevin didn't really care. Matt was vehemently against it, which is fine. It's fine. It's how we work. He wanted to get Garrett Wilson. I would have been fine with Garrett Wilson. The news literally came out just as Tim Patrick went. So 2 picks in front of us. And so we ended up taking him there. What do you think? Wide receiver 61.
I won't say that I hate it. I don't know if it sounded like that before, but as I look at these names, they're all pretty similar. I mean, you have guys that you're going to find out about early and then maybe cut. Then you have guys that you have to wait on, like Gallup, who goes 13-04. That team, and this is not better. That team has to wait for Gallup. And you're not going to draft him in the 13th round or any round. You don't want to draft him in any round. You have to do this because you know his status. You know he's going to be at least a month, I'm thinking, on Gallup. Right. So you can't draft him and cut him, right? So that guy's committed, I think.
Right. Yeah.
There. And so I'd rather have the flexibility, and then sometimes you can move into guys like that when other people get impatient. I don't know. Geez.
I know. Yeah. And that's why I said it. It was kind of a toss up there. I mean, I don't hate Garrett Wilson. I don't hate Josh Palmer's kind of rising. Not kind of, he is. He's rising up boards. Another thing is not knowing where Julio is going to end up landing ADP wise. Like maybe he's an 11th round pick from here on out, and we got two rounds of value on him. So we'll see. But we can even dive into the team a little bit. What do you think? I know we've been texting about it. Draft Shark Jared's doing a Draft Sharks recap. What do you think? How did we do so far out of the one spot?
Am I allowed to say that you and I have been talking as well? I mean, I don't think I have any influence over what you've done here. I mean, some of it I've liked, and some of it I would have done differently. Look, but Kamara in round 3, I think you're probably betting that as we get closer to the season, that's going to look really good later on. That he'll be maybe half a round later in the season. So certainly no problem there. And it looked like a lot of value went in front of you when you're looking at Tyreek Hill there. I might have felt like I had to take a receiver there, and he or one of the Chargers is probably, or AJ Brown is what I would have wanted to do. So you're fine. Did you feel like you had to pick Jackson at that spot? A, because you have Bateman, B, because you're at the 1 spot and it's 24 more picks?
So I am a I'm a wait on QB guy. There was a big discussion at the 4-5 turn about Josh Allen. Nobody loves Josh Allen more than me, but we were able to kind of figure that out with there being 2 good receivers there, 2 guys that we all like to be able to kind of pass on Allen. I hate being the team that takes the first quarterback. I just don't think that's the right way to go about doing it. Even when it came back around to Lamar, I was fine with Lamar. We could have gone with Kyler Murray too. Kyler Murray's my personal QB1, and
QB2.
QB1. No, QB1. Like I would take.
Really?
I think Kyler's going to end up as, like, if I'm picking number 1 in a super flex, I'm taking Josh Allen because I can't get him anywhere else. Whereas Kyler, I can generally get anywhere else unless I'm picking behind Louis, and then he takes him like at 3 overall or 2 overall, whatever he did. But I just think Kyler, to me, maybe he doesn't finish with a better season stats than Josh Allen or whatever, but his end of the year schedule is nice. He plays in better weather, all that type of stuff. So at the end of the year, like if I'm going to draft a quarterback early, he needs to be a league winner, a big money winner for me. So at the end of the year has got to be where I'm really counting on him. Most of the quarterbacks are going to do fine all year to keep. You're not going to lose because of your quarterback. You want a quarterback that's going to win you the league at the end of the year, and that could be Kyler Murray for sure. So anyways, I'm a guy that likes to wait. I remember talking to these guys, and Lamar's fine. Lamar has a great opportunity to be QB1 also. But that's a situation where I'm like, man, I've been in these drafts before, and I have a feeling that these are the type of drafts where I literally said these are the type of drafts where Matt Stafford goes in the 13th round. And here we are, 13th round, Matt Stafford. Like, I'm fine with Jackson. I think he makes our team dynamic with his rushing ability. But if you sit down and try to compare the two, maybe you take another player at the 6. Was at the 612, and then wait and take a guy like Stafford in the 13th. But there's no one that we really loved there at the 612. So I was okay with Lamar Jackson for sure. Treylon Burks, we took him in the 9th, and like news came out like hours later that he's looking better, and he really took the coaches.
Surprise.
Yeah, well, there was this whole thing that he's asthma and he's on his shoulder and all this. And then it had that Jamar Chase vibe to it, right? Where the guy can't, I was actually thinking that, like, that's kind of reminds me of Jamar Chase last year. And then I think I heard it on a podcast. I will think of which one it was and reference them because they were saying the same thing that I was saying. I think it was the Hustle the other day, the FF Hustle with Drake and Dwayne McFarland. But yeah, so I like the way the team's going, and we kind of squeezed out a couple tight ends there, but I think I like where we're headed.
I know you love Pollard. That'll be a key man this year across this event and the big tournaments is what happens with Elliott, because there's certainly a scenario where Elliott isn't injured. I mean, he's been so durable through his career, and he's making a lot of money. I don't know if Pollard has to return value there. And I just want to say, because, we're on the record here, when it came to be your turn at 6-7, I thought, like, it was almost a no-brainer for me. I would have taken Murray and Hopkins together there. You mentioned their playoff schedule. That matters in the main event. And I think, a guy like yourself, the Draft Sharks team, got to trust itself to get to the playoffs unless, things get a little screwy. So Murray and Hopkins was my idea at 6 and 7, but I like Jackson just fine. And we'll see how you do on Julio Jones. One thing I do know, you can't trade him.
That is true. Cannot trade him.
You can't, see him have a good 2 or 3 weeks in the main event and trade him over to, to BIP. I mean that with much respect, by the way. If he's in this league, he is, right?
BIP's been making our life a pain in the butt in this draft. I'll tell you.
Oh, that's high praise. Well, you have another one. We can do that. I want to ask you real quick, and I tweeted about this, so I want to make sure I do. The tight end start. Like it, hate it? Do you like it more than other years or less? I'm in a 250 cash league at FFPC and started Kelsey Pitts.
Yeah, I don't. I never do it anymore. So I guess I like the thought of it. It's just the advance rate isn't very good. It doesn't really win. Like if Fantasy Mojo does a lot of research on that every year, specific to the FFPC. And it's just, and if he's listening, he can post a link to some work he's done or whatever. But
I don't know if I want to see it.
It just doesn't win generally at a high rate. But again, anything can win. I mean, you can go back at the end of the year and go, I could have taken a quarterback in the first and a tight end in the second and win. So it's just having the right combination of players. I used to do it a lot because it just sounds, it makes sense. But I think it's just hard with the way that the draft plays out. You end up chasing other positions. And so, but I do think hey, if you go Kelsey Pitts and Pitts ends up being, a wide receiver 7, the wide receiver 7 overall or something crazy, then it could certainly work.
I wanted to do it because I like the wide receivers in the middle of the draft. And I suppose you have to get a little bit lucky that the ones you like are there. But in this draft, I went Sutton, Gabriel Davis, and Mooney, 4, 5, 6, and then Olave, Claypool, Rondale Moore at 9, 10, 11. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I guess I need Sutton to be an alpha, but I feel like that's a pretty good result. And that's happened to me 2 or 3 times. I don't have to be right. But if I'm starting running back heavy or this tight end build, the wide receiver that's the risk, that you're not going to get there at that position. But I like the guys in the middle. There's plenty of them. There's always, not always, but I don't know. I can make an argument for a lot of them at this point now, going into the last third of the draft. It's kind of pretty random, but I don't know.
Yep.
I'm optimistic at this point. Let's see your second main.
Yeah. Oh, it's the second main. Okay.
Are we doing that?
Yeah, no, I had them all pulled up here. Of course, it's spinning.
He has so many main events that it slows his computer down.
It slows my computer down. I do want to say before we get to the board, because you mentioned Cortland Sutton. We haven't really talked a lot about Sutton versus Judy, and I'm hearing a lot of that now. What's your lean? It doesn't have to be like some hard stance, but what's your lean? You lean Sutton or you lean Judy if they're both there?
I don't know. I don't feel like I know enough about how that's going to go. I mean, really, who does? But you can find your own reasons for preferring either one. I have more Sutton, but I don't really know that I have a reason for that. I mean, bigger body. Really, like I've heard all the stuff about he and Wilson aligning, and I know what I felt about Judy a year ago, which was, or two years ago, I guess now, right? Super excited about him. So it certainly could go either way. I'm guarded on Tim Patrick, even though I respect that he's been productive for them. I can't get over the talent. And this is the same problem, if it's a problem, that NFL teams themselves have, where they get married to the guy that they think was just the better player coming in. And that just means more potential and more upside. And so I get that way too. So I can't, and it helped me on Gage, I guess. Like I didn't exactly load up on him. I don't think he's dead, but it's really sort of falling for the players that you've heard more about, that were drafted earlier, and you sort of get comfortable with the ideas of them first. And so in these situations, Sutton and Judy are both interesting to me. Either one could be above the other. I don't think there's really a strong case for why that couldn't be right, why it has to be one and not the other. And then after that, I'm kind of out on Patrick. And I do like Hamler, who had some draft capital too, and Alberto. Not really falling for the Dulcich stuff. Feel like he is a really sort of unicorn type athlete, and I want to see what happens there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I've kind of been clinging to this. It's a Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf kind of thing going on in Denver, and I think that Judy is probably better than Lockett. At least he has a better profile, a better, he was drafted higher and, and all that stuff. And then I think Sutton maybe isn't as good as DK Metcalf. So maybe give the edge to Metcalf there. And I know it's a different team and a different offense and all that, but I lean Judy in PPR, especially. I just think he's going to get more catches. And I know it's the tiniest sample size ever, but they came out, and it's a different coach and all that, but they came out week 1 last year and just were peppering Judy. I think they really love him. And so I could see it going either way, but I feel like they could both hit. They could absolutely both hit, and it's fine, But if I'm on the clock, I need a receiver, and I have to decide between the two. I'm gonna go with Judy. But
2 years ago, Seattle, Metcalf and Lockett, 132 targets to 129.
Bingo.
Lockett, 100 catches to 83. Metcalf, 1,300 yards to 1,050. Touchdowns, 10-10. That's what I'm talking about, right? Like, week to week, it was different. Best ball, you're fine with either one.
Absolutely. Perfect.
So close.
All right. So moving on. So this is my first main, solo main by myself, my first portfolio main here. Drew the 4 spot. I know you want to talk about draft spots tonight too, which I definitely want to get to. So this is my first minute. I drew the 4 spot. I'm hiding the names. I know a couple guys in this draft, so we're going to hide the names and all that stuff because we're still early on here. But drew the 4 spot. Absolutely was so excited for that in the FFPC format, and went Justin Jefferson. For those listening, it went McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson. That was a no-brainer for me. Love the 4. We'll talk about it later, but that's probably my absolutely favorite position. If I could pick one, would be the 4. Came back around to me, and I was obviously hoping for Barkley or Pitts, and here we are in the first portfolio main of the year, and they go back to back naturally, but I'm fine. I'm fine with Mike Evans. At least I was pre-Julio. And then I hope none of the Draft Sharks guys are listening or watching, or don't listen to this or watch this, because it came back in the 3rd, and I kind of went rogue off the draft, off the war room. The war room was saying Lenny Fournette. It was saying Alvin Kamara. It was saying James Conner. But I just the thought of having Debo's kind of upside, taking him in the 3rd round, past ADP. I know Lenny and all those guys were past ADP as well. But having him as my wide receiver 3, I just couldn't pass it up. And I wanted to, this is where like the game within the game, I wanted to force all these teams that went running back to have to take another running back or reach on receivers going back into 3rd and 4th. And so, so far, I think it's worked pretty well. There's some guys left that I want here in the 4th, but what do you think about how this draft has gone so far?
What I like about it is that it might be original. I mean, Debo is not getting Lamb there or anything like that, and Evans might slip, and it could go the other way, where you see Jefferson, Samuel, Evans. So I doubt it'll be like completely unique, but I would have wanted a running back there. I always want one by this time, if not 2, because of the point I made before about receivers. I feel like I can get there, and I think that's a little bit what, I don't know. Like maybe I'm doing the math wrong on that, but I think, at running back, who are you looking at for running back 1? Maybe you don't want to say.
Yeah.
If you have a sort of it's not going to be Tony Pollard yet.
Right.
So you might be sort of planning ahead for Tony Pollard again, or
maybe
James Cook or somebody like that. But I would have wanted, you mentioned Fournette, Kamara, and Connor, and I would include ETN. I think all of those would have been my preference.
Yeah, Kamara, having just taken him in the main I just showed you, I don't want to be overweight on Kamara before August 1st, before we hear a little bit more, maybe get a little bit more information. So he was kind of ruled out. It was really between Lenny, as far as the running backs were, Lenny and ETN, and then James Robinson. Is he back? Debo just has top, 3 wide receiver upside, top 2 wide receiver upside, and to have it there, and I'm comfortable. I do enough drafting where I'm comfortable taking receivers and loading up and getting running backs that I like later. I'm comfortable going 0 RB. I'm comfortable going hero RB. And I think, and I also know some of the drafters in this, so I'm kind of playing off of the tendencies of what they like to do. So, like, for example, here, whoever's on the clock here, I know who it is, but are they going to go with a 4th running back? I don't think so. So they got to take a receiver, pushing running backs to me. Now, there might be, there's 1 or 2 running backs I'd be fine with here. And if they go, I'm fine with taking, Jerry Jeudy or whatever. Look at Gabe Davis at wide receiver 16. It's stuff like that pushes guys down, So I never expected to get Debo in the 3rd. Seeing Pittman go before him, AJ Brown fine, Darren Waller go before him. I was just like, let me get some Debo here and go from there.
I like Aaron Jones a lot in that round 2 spot too, but if I can get a little bare knuckle practice in, the player right here I think is Marquis Brown, but Marquis Brown has a hamstring injury and is not starting camp on time. So here we are drafting in the middle of all these news cycles.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'd be as confident on Marquis Brown, and then if I've drafted 3 running backs already where does that leave me? And I can get to the next name eventually in my head. But I think Brown is the name that's missing at wide receiver to this point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple. I got about. So what I like to do too, this is off topic, but whenever I'm in between picks, I like to queue up the amount of picks that it takes to get to me for guys that I would take. And when I come back and I see a bunch of guys left in my queue and I'm about to pick, it makes me, okay, beautiful. I'm going to get a guy that I like. And so I did that after I took Debo, and there's like 4 or 5 guys actually left in my queue. So I'm happy about that. The Aaron Jones point's a great point. Those were the 2 guys I was toiling over, Mike Evans, Aaron Jones. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to like what comes to me a little bit later at the running back. So I went with Evans, and the guy insta-called Aaron Jones. Like, yeah, it's a 2-hour timer. Like within 2 minutes, he had picked Aaron Jones. So, so that didn't make me feel great. But
Team 6 could pick Herbert. I think I definitely wouldn't. But Herbert and Eckler are interesting together, and then try to catch up at receiver the rest of the night and draft Hayden Hurst as your tight end 1 or something like that. All right, well, good luck.
Love it.
We're going to get over to the Superflex Bowl results in just a minute, but I was using the Draft Sharks ranking site the other day to try to just check out, I don't know which draft it was. I don't think you can blame me at this point, but I'm looking at the different rankings, and I have this up on a screen for you to share, Adam.
Yeah,
the 3D projections. This looks like no other site I've ever seen.
How clean is that?
I mean, I have running backs called up, and like if you really want to deep dive Christian McCaffrey versus Jonathan Taylor, or I mean, this goes very long in the rankings. What more do you need? The ceiling versus the floor. Even there's that injury prediction that the Draft Sharks have. That's unique. Draft Sharks projections have won maybe as many awards as anybody. Like I'm always hearing about the Draft Sharks awards for their accuracy and their projections, but it's not as simple as just sort of looking at a straight list, as every good player knows. So you want to have as much information as you can, floor projections, ceilings as well. There's a consensus there, projection from 38 other sites. So you have no excuse for not making a pick you can feel comfortable with and that's weighted by the Draft Sharks team. And it's also, again, with the Draft War Room, it's updating after every pick, so it will shift your priorities as you go along. Upside mode automatically in the second half. You see Adam in this main event, round 13. They're looking for guys. They know they might want to cut them, but somebody that just ends up being huge for them that's relatively cheap and unexpected. So get to draftsharks.com, become an insider, and you can use all these tools for yourself and see how they can help you.
Yeah, Sports Injury Predictor is a great thing for them. They have folded that into their rankings and their website. So they have all these great injury analysis and stuff, and it shows like the likelihood of a guy getting injured, and it uses the analytics behind that. So it's so good. And honestly, this is going to sound crazy. I'm definitely a live fast draft guy, but doing slow drafts at this time of year, it makes me enjoy slow drafts because I'm like, all right, I've got time. Let me go and look at these. Let me just go and look at these projections. Like it's so clean. There's so much information that like it really helps you when you have time to make these choices. Read the profiles, read the little snippets, look at the injury predictor. Especially when you've got 2 hours or 6 hours or something to make your picks.
All right, let's shift over to the FFWC, the Superflex Bowl, continuing one of their great tournaments, the Player Profiler and more. Adam, you've been in Superflex Bowl recently. Let's see, this is probably Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's a Saturday night. And of course, I said, Kyler Murray's in every Superflex draft, I've pretty much taken Kyler Murray. So I'm trying to diversify. I said he was my number one here. I had the second overall pick in this one. And I'm using this to really prepare for the Draft Sharks Invitational that's coming up because it's very similar. It's got Superflex, obviously. It's start through 3 receivers with a flex. Draft Sharks Invitationals also start through receivers with flex. So the only difference is it's not to tight end premium. But if you're looking to get some practice in, everyone who's in the Draft Invitational, this is probably a really good way to do it. So I drew the 2 pick, and I don't have much, if any, Justin Herbert. Love Justin Herbert, so I went the Herbert route. Came back around and went Trey Lance. I mean, QB 12. Mike, do you think with the news today that it's officially his team? I mean, you and I knew that already, but do you think he'll move up from QB 12?
He can't move down.
Right. Great point.
Right. I was looking at, so I wrote an article today for WGR550.com, Odyssey.
Yes.
And it was about imagining spending $1,000 on futures. And so at the different books, you see all kinds of different interesting prop bets, and they had rushing yards for some of the top players, and Lance was on there. And, part of what, obviously, if you do it, part of what goes into your thinking when deciding whether or not to place a prop bet is what is the price?
Yep.
There's something that would sound good at plus 150, but terrible at minus 150. So Lance, his over-under in rushing yards was 500. And the juice on that was minus 150 on the over. Like, prop bettors are very savvy, at least on the same level as those in the high-stakes fantasy space.
Yep.
And I think there has been no doubt this offseason that it was going to be Lance. And it's sort of against the grain, but San Francisco has just been very forthcoming about that situation. You don't have to believe them because coaches lie all the time, but Kyle Shanahan got to the point today. It's like, yeah, it's Lance's team, and Garoppolo would have been traded had he not been hurt. And he was talking that way pretty much throughout the summer. So, I've been looking at Lance. I'm somebody who got burned last year because I drafted him everywhere last year. Quarterback 1 in rookie drafts for me last year, and then I got almost nothing. But I am super bullish on his fantasy value this year. Quarterback 1 is what I would bet on. Top 12.
Yes.
And so,
absolutely.
It does seem there's a pretty good range in these drafts where he goes, and I think we'll see that in the Draft Sharks Invitational. About Murray lasting until 11. That probably annoyed you. But then Lance making it all the way back to you had to feel good.
Yeah, no, I've been taking Lance a ton in Superflex. And even in regular drafts, if he plays 15 games, there's no way he doesn't finish as a QB1. He's going to run all over the place. That 500 yards you said, he's going to smash that. And the weapons he has there, the only way he fails fantasy wise is if Shanahan treats him like they treated Justin Fields in Chicago last year. Just doing the exact opposite of what the guy's good at. Deep throws, no checkdowns, no screens, not letting him run. Like they're going to unleash Lance. We've talked about Lance a lot. We'll continue to talk about him. Lance is an absolute smash. And maybe the discount's gone on him now. So came back around, and in every Superflex draft, I tend to get Saquon Barkley because I can't get him anywhere else. So I take him in Superflex to get him. DJ Moore I took in the 4th round here. What are your thoughts on DJ Moore, the new quarterback there? Baker Mayfield, hopefully being a little bit better than anything he's ever had. I don't think we've talked a lot about DJ Moore, but I'm coming around to DJ Moore for sure.
I am probably at market on him. I don't prefer him to AJ Brown, but I do prefer him to some of those other guys who came later. And like in other sites, you see him going mid-3rd now. Just want to sneak in a kind of a snarky point on Lance, but had he started in the NFC Championship, they would have won the Super Bowl by 20 points. But that would have been ballsy, right? Like, come on. I know you're winning games. I know you're a playoff team, which they really weren't until the 4th quarter of Week 18. They got away with it. They had a big comeback to beat the Rams, and then won the game in Green Bay on special teams. Come on, Garoppolo has lived a pretty charmed life and football career to go with. On DJ Moore, I'm fine. I don't mind the quarterback thing. I like McLaurin more, not like as opposed to Moore, but as opposed to DJ Moore. But I've told you, I think I like the feel of Wentz and McLaurin. Wentz just sort of trying to reclaim his career and throwing the ball down the field and really just sort of being more aggressive. And with Dotson there and even Curtis Samuel, I think there's like a real high ceiling for McLaurin, who we know is great. Moore and McLaurin fit together in the same box for me as guys who haven't had the quarterback luxury yet, but are both great players. And I think even though I'm not a Wentz fan, I like McLaurin a little bit more just in a vacuum there. Based on ADP, it's DJ Moore by, a round. So you have to factor that into it. But I'm fine there. I'd rather have Moore than Pittman. Debo goes, just before. We're going this way.
Yeah.
Oh, I did that. I'm looking at the screen. I like DJ Moore.
Yeah, I like him too. He's a guy I think I'm going to be probably overweight on by the end of the year if I can get in the right kind of draft spots. So yeah, we'll go through real quick, and then I know we want to get to draft spots at the end here. Nick Chubb, fine. I don't have a lot of Nick Chubb. I'd like to go kind of running back heavy in this is best ball as well. Just like the Drafters Invitational, also best ball, so very, very similar. And then there he is, Juju Smith-Schuster. Schultz was it's funny. I just did a show with the Goat District where they ripped Schultz, and I was not a big, in this tier, not a big Schultz fan. I accidentally timed out on Schultz. I was not too happy about that, but fine. Drake London, and then Deshaun Watson. I've been taking a lot of Deshaun Watson with the kind of favorable news the last couple of weeks as far as him playing maybe half the year. I've been taking a lot of him in Superflex. I took him in the Scott Fish Bowl around the same time, so I've been taking him there. And then some old faithfuls here, Sky Moore, Kenny Galladay. And then I just went crazy on running back at the end because I only took two early. So, got a bunch of handcuffs. One of your favorites that you put me on to, Darrell Henderson.
Yeah.
I really like that. So Sony Michelle, Jared Smola has been a lot of he's really been pushing for Michelle there. Maybe he could be another handcuff league winning type player to take late with the the injury history to Mostert and all that type stuff going on in Miami. So whatever, shots in the dark here at the end, but yeah, this is just a good way to kind of get some of the rust out for a lot of the guys in the Directors Invitational that aren't used to playing Superflex.
Your running back in the last round was the last running back picked, and that was running back 72?
Yeah.
Still no Mike Davis.
No.
Well, I'm 80-20 serious to funny. Okay. Probable starter for the Ravens against the Jets week 1. Maybe. Maybe he gets cut. They brought in Corey Clement. What year was that? Beatty did get picked here in the second to last round. I don't know. Davis had all the worst metrics last year, but everybody liked him before. Not everybody, but he was pretty popular the year before.
Yeah.
And to any extent where you buy into running backs don't matter, you put him on the Ravens. I don't think that lasts very long, but there's a pretty decent chance he starts the year as their starting running back.
Only if the other guys are on the pup, I would think. Unless, if Dobbins is not on the pup, Dobbins is starting. If Gus Edwards is, I think they'll both be. Whatever. It's just my experience. Generally guys who are 12 months out from a ACL end up playing, but yet they added him for a reason, right? They added Mike Davis for a reason. So we'll see. There's certainly a path there for sure.
When you see the names at the end, it's really all I'm pointing out. You see the names at the end of these drafts. I don't know. There is a path for him to be on the field. Remember what happened last year with Baltimore? John Harbaugh called Gus Edwards questionable for week 1. Dobbins, we've been around and around on him. Neither is ready, or maybe even that close to ready as of tonight. Okay, so next week's a big week. Tuesday, I assume we'll go on the air for Pros versus Joes.
Oh, yeah.
That's the 6th and final draft in that event, the third of which is tonight, the third draft of the 6. And ours wraps it up. So we'll have the benefit, if you want to call it that, of seeing the first 5 leagues and who did what. We pick 5th. Then the Draft Sharks Invitational opens the next night, and I'm in the first one of those. Which one are you in?
I'm in the second.
It's Thursday. All right. So I'll be going Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and they're very different formats. And I don't know. I'm ready. I want to talk about Pros versus Joes more just now because I think a certain thing is happening as these high stakes FFPC leagues start to unfold. That's the main event. That's, of course, the football guys and different ones. There's one player I think that really maybe has the most power over what happens in the first round. And I wouldn't pick Taylor or McCaffrey. I mean, McCaffrey's going to be going 101 more often than Taylor here between now and the season, don't you think?
That's what's been happening. So the two main events, we took McCaffrey 101, and the other one, and then McCaffrey went 101.
Yeah. So those guys, I mean, that's power, but they're sort of obvious. And I feel like this is consensus that there's a tier break after 4, where you have those 2 running backs, then Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson. And most of the time, those 4 players in some order are the first 4 picks. Then you get to 5. That's our slot next Tuesday in Pros versus Joes is 5.
Yep.
I think the player you really have to sort of know how you feel about before the draft in these drafts is Chase.
Yeah.
And you see Chase at 5 all the time, sometimes earlier, often later. I saw the tweet from our friends at PFF, Ian and Dwayne, how they started a draft last night, whether it was, I think it was football guys or main event, I'm not sure, but they got Chase at 10.
Just
because once you get to 5, there isn't the conviction on Chase that there is on Jefferson or Kupp. Then it's like, all right, how do I want to do this? Would I rather have Chase and Fournette, or would I rather have Eckler and Debo? Depending on, or 2 running backs, Henry and Mixon, or something like that. That's when I think at 5 is when you're seeing teams go by what kind of structure they want.
Yeah.
And somebody who's thinking that way, who loves the upside of Jamar Chase, is picking Jamar Chase. And without that, I mean, there are arguments where you sort of equivocate a little bit, then you're into running back. And if you have a string of guys who feel that way, Chase falls. So he is really a pivot point in round 1.
And we haven't talked about this at all. So this is good because, it's basically all based on structure. Do you want to go 5? Do you want to go Chase? Do you want to go Travis Kelce and get yourself an elite tight end? Do you want to go running back because you want to go running back early? Maybe it's best ball. You prefer running back Eckler, whatever. To me, the Chase discussion is okay. We have a guy who's absolutely sensational. The knock on Jamar Chase, what I've heard, is that he was too efficient last year. He was too good. Like, there's no way he can be that efficient on deep balls again. There's no way. Guys, he was a rookie. We're talking about a rookie that was absolutely spectacular, okay? I know a lot of his stuff came in a couple of games, a lot of his stats and stuff, but talking about a guy going into his second year with a quarterback that's a pass-only quarterback, essentially, with weapons to take all the pressure off him, with a much improved offensive line, with a run game and a defense that isn't that good. Like, this is where we make fantasy football hard. Like, Jamar Chase could absolutely be the wide receiver 1. And it's just, if receivers are out that we want to go, I am more than happy to take Chase there. In fact, I would if I was picking right now, I would take Chase. And I would, because I'm comfortable taking a receiver in the first round. Some people aren't. I'm comfortable going any strategy that you want to go. But if you want Chase, I'm for it. I think he's just so good, and the situation is just perfect.
I love it. I mean, I am happy to end up there. Let me just ask you, when you think of Jamar Chase's rookie season, is there one play that comes to mind first?
Not really. I mean, okay. If I think of a play, it's him dropping the ball in like the playoffs on like a seam route or something. But but that's pretty much it.
So the Kansas City game that won all the people who won money, all the money.
Yeah.
There's a play where he catches a little in route or something for 10 yards short of midfield and then just runs untouched all the way to the end zone.
Yeah.
Remember how Kansas City looked in the secondary in the Buffalo playoff game and in that game? Like, I don't know. This obviously sounds like I'm taking something away from him, and I would want to do that. But man, the efficiency element is to be respected, I think. And I go along. I tend to sort of default. I understand it when you have the PFF argument, if I may, where like, well, his points were here, but his expected points were here. And good luck repeating that. I mean, that speaks to me. So I do think like both things are true. And that's why maybe there's this variance on Chase where, look, I love what you say. Don't make it harder than it is. Look how good he is, as a rookie to be able to do that. I don't love everything you're saying about the Cincinnati situation. I mean, maybe their defense is better, really hard to know. Their whole draft was non-skills, which I think makes sense for them. And I love Higgins. And
Yep.
I'm drafting Boyd a lot because a year ago, Adam, we were probably talking about Tyler Boyd every day on this show. And, here's a sleeper or mid-round, whatever. And then he kind of got buried and forgotten about, but he's still good. And you have two guys where if one of them gets hurt, that sets up Boyd. But, we're not drafting Tyler Boyd at 1-5 next week, no matter what you say. All right. Well, we'll take this conversation off the air, but interesting how Chase, I think, has become, if you think about it, you see drafts where he goes 5, and then what happens after that. Kelsey, Cook, Eckler, Henry, Najee Harris, it's just like there's 5-6 guys that all go next, and then there's 5 or 6 more that all go next. But to see Chase slip to 10 last night really does remind you that he's somebody, not everybody. You've been playing in the best ball leagues all through the offseason. You did see that variance on Chase. Once in a while, 2 or 3, but often 7, 8, 9. And really nobody else in the first round was quite like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. I completely agree. And he's kind of like the gatekeeper to the rest of the first round. Like he's either he's going to go there or he could absolutely drop. And man,
right.
Can I be in a draft one time and picking at 9 or 10 and have him fall there? That would be amazing.
I know that doesn't happen for me either, but as you know, I'm never picking that late.
That's right.
He's almost like a tight end. Kelsey plays that way, where teams decide whether or not they want to start their build with a tight end. And if a few don't in a row, then he falls. And if, as soon as somebody does, then you have him. And Chase almost plays like that in the first round. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it. And maybe Chase will go in front of us and we'll laugh about this conversation.
Right.
And so Draft Sharks is Wednesday. Are you going to be a part of that broadcast?
Absolutely.
Oh.
I'll be critiquing all your work over there for sure.
I have to figure out what helmets I want for that one.
That's right. I'll be I'm excited for you. It'll be fun and it's gonna be a fun but long 2 weeks with the Invitational and the football the Pros versus Joes. It's gonna be 2 weeks of podcasts and then we're off to Canton.
Canton the following weekend. I got to get with you about one of these Superflex Bowls too. You've been doing a couple, and I'm ready to do one.
Yep, for sure.
And we're in a big one over there, aren't we? Do we have to schedule?
We're in a big one over where?
FFWC.
What do you mean?
It's not the Player Profiler, is it? One of their other bigger events? Don't we have one, or is that?
I think we have.
Just you?
It's a Player Profiler. Yep, we have one Player Profiler we have to sign up for. And hey, listen, if you're trying to twist my arm to get into a main event over there, you don't have to twist it too hard.
Is the Profiler one we should do live? I think maybe.
Yeah. That's like their 350. That's their like mid-level game.
Yeah. All right. How about 2
It
weeks from tonight?
Yeah, I was gonna say it doesn't have to be on a Tuesday or whatever. We can always record it non-live and just post it, So
Right.
if it has to be a Friday night or something, well, whatever.
Okay, listen, Scorsese, I'll let you decide what we're going to do on that one. All right, thanks for watching tonight at Deep End FF1 at Draft Sharks. We'll be back on Thursday with a Dynasty edition. That's good because last week I felt like I had very little new to say, but I've been making trades this week. I just had a trade offer declined that I have to make sure.
Vent about?
I think I do want to vent about that. Like, come on, how much easier can I make this for you? But I always say knowing the people you're dealing with is important because you make judgments on them, sometimes probably wrong, but it just feels so much better to know them. And when you're in a league where you don't know anybody, man, I feel like I'm not the cool kid. And I don't know, maybe for some reason they think They think they don't want to make a trade with me that I would know something. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about it on Thursday. For Adam Krautwurst, I'm Mike Shope. Thanks for being in the deep end with us tonight. We'll see you Thursday night, hopefully.
See you guys.